Hey guys, and welcome to Tnashi's Movie Corner. And for today's review, I will be reviewing WarCraft along with Brad. Say hi.
Hey everyone.
All right, so let's get right into it. Going into this movie, there was a lot of mixed reviews and everything, and there was definitely a lot of people that, critics-wise, that didn't like this movie. Now, this let's get it out there. My knowledge of Warcraft is very limited, so I went into it knowing a little bit, but not too much. I was more of the casual viewer, say, and Brad actually knows some stuff on Warcraft, don't you?
Yes, I do. Mostly with the initial games, which are the first Warcraft and the Tides of Darkness. I haven't actually played World of Warcraft, but I have a vague knowledge of some of the things that were in there.
But turns out that's going to play in a little bit. So for me personally, was this movie great? Nah. Was it terrible? No, not really. I thought it was okay. I thought the acting was acting-ish for the most part. There was some cool action scenes. There was some CG that looked pretty good. Actually, some of the orcs looked really good. And there was some magic that I thought was cool. But then there was other times when it was very clearly fake. So I do have that issue sometimes when I'm watching a lot of CG in movies. There was a character or two that I thought had the potential to be interesting, but the story arcs for me didn't play out too well for what they gave. So, and the way they would be set up and the way it would ultimately conclude with their story arcs, I didn't care for. And the pacing is so sloppy, and the editing is terrible, in my opinion, because it looked like they just took out big chunks of the movie. So it took me out of the movie every time they did that, because it was very obvious that they did that. There's a couple moments of humor that are there, here or there, and I thought that was cool. There are some calls to the game that I noticed, so I appreciate that. I appreciate that aspect of it. Yeah, I'll go ahead and I think I'll let you take over, because that's most of my initial impressions of it.
I think part of what was wrong with the pacing of this movie is that, World of Warcraft did have a lot of lore associated with it, and even in this, there's some lore in the background that it should be there at least a little bit more than it is, to kind of explain why we're going from one transition to another. But and it's also like the movie felt like it had to cover a lot of ground just real quickly, so it's like, we should spend some more time here, but we just don't have the time to devote to it, so we're just...
Yeah, I felt like I needed a pamphlet of like a how-to guide kind of thing, like go through, because there's a lot of stuff that they do not cover. Like, well, they make nods to almost, but they don't cover as far as an explanation of how this stuff is happening, why it's happening, everything like that. So there's a lot of stuff that's there, and I know it's important, but I can't tell why it's important, just that it's important somehow.
Right, and I think that's the problem. You'd have a lot, because they really didn't spend much time explaining some of the deeper stuff at all. As far as my thoughts on this, and I'll keep things brief, more or less, I would say if you liked the original games and you remember them, you might be a little bit underwhelmed here, in the sense that a lot of the characters that were in those that were key to that initial story have a different kind of role in this movie than they did before.
Like Resident Evil.
So, and part of it is that some characters actually got more put in the spotlight, and then other characters that were also important are just almost are barely in this movie. In some aspects, you just don't get the significance of what they were going to be, and part of that, and even though this is a newer interpretation, part of me was like, okay, these characters are there, they should be doing something, but they're not. It's just, they're just putting all the attention on just a very small selection of these characters.
Right. So it didn't really fit very well with the first two games.
No, in fact, there is quite a lot of difference. between what happened there and what happened here in this movie.
Which is okay, in my opinion, if it's done right. But was this done right? Nah, not really. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, again, there's some cool action scenes. There's some potential for characters, right? There's some potential. Like, there's some characters I did enjoy. But and there's visually there is some good visuals to it. And there's some interesting aspects of it as far as the lore is concerned, and everything else. I think really what drove me to not like it as much was the choppy editing. It was because it feels like there's whole chunks of this movie that's just not there, and then just the pacing was all over the place, and of course the climactic climactic scene of the movie, right? It didn't work for me. So I expected more out of it. But as you said, there's definitely characters here that you recognized, right?
Yes. There are a number of them that I recognized.
But do they fit with the with the characters that you saw in the game, or are they different, or how do you feel on that?
From the game's lore that I remember, these characters don't really fit because, like I said, they are a lot more passive in this movie, because a lot of them are actually supposed to be at the head. They're supposed to be like ruthless, or they're supposed to be valiant. The people that are leading from the front, supposedly, and they just don't in this movie.
Fair enough. So what would you rate this 1 through 10?
I'm thinking somewhere between a 5 and a 6.
Somewhere between a 5 and a 6.
Because I agree with you that there is enjoyment to be found here, and there is a story to tell, and there are some incredible effects and that kind of go into this movie, and so it definitely had its potential. But the way that this paced, and the fact that some of these characters didn't get enough time to really let them grow into what they're supposed to be, or what they will eventually become, I think helps bog this down. So we definitely need a longer version of this movie.
For me, this was like a bootleg version of Lord of the Rings, where you get it and the picture quality doesn't quite match up. Maybe some of the voices are off kilter. You're like, oh man, why didn't I just buy the actual 3D or HD Blu-ray with surround sound? Like, why don't I have that? I got this piece of crap, which sounds worse than it is in a way. But there's some enjoyment here, and there's definitely a lot of problems. So I understand if you don't like it, for sure. I understand that. There was just there was enough for me to enjoy it, and you said 5 through 6, somewhere in there. I'm actually going in the middle at a 5.5, and again, that's partially because some of the stuff, and we won't spoil it, but there are some references that I did get. So it was kind of cool to get that. Like, it was cool for me to see that, at least. And, again, the acting wasn't the worst. So, there's some stuff working for it. There's some cool action scenes there. There's some cool visuals, what have you. But anyway, that about wraps up our review. We did ask a couple people, 3 people, actually, as we left. 2 of them were wearing WarCraft robes or what have you. We asked what they thought, and they gave it a 7. All 3 of them were at a 7 out of 10. So just to give some perspective to it. But anyway, that'll wrap this up. And come Sunday, I will try to have Brad here explain the actual differences between this movie and between the games. So he's going to give a thorough breakdown of that, right?
Indeed.
Okay, looking forward to that. Man of many words, this Brad character. You're gonna have to talk a lot. I'm just letting you know.
Oh, I'm prepared for it.
Okay, yeah, I gotta work out them lungs. Anyway, so hopefully you enjoyed this vid. Click that like button, share, subscribe to my channel, and watch my other vids. I do appreciate it. And until next time,
peace.
Booyah. Got it right.